Three Little Pigs.
The Three Little Pigs, retold by Kath Jewett, illustrated by May Matsuoka. Once upon a time, there were three little pigs who lived in a cozy cottage on the hill. They loved to eat all the delicious food their mother made them every day. They ate so much that it wasn't long before the three little pigs had grown so big that there was no room for them in the cozy cottage any more.
"I'm sorry," said the mother one morning, "but it's time you made your own way in the world."
So the very next day, the three little pigs left home.
"Don't forget to watch out for the big bad wolf,"
called their mother as she waved goodbye.
"He'll eat you for supper, so you'll need to build a big, fine, strong house as quickly as you can to keep him away."
Don't worry, Ma.
They oinked.
We can look after ourselves.
And the three little pigs trotted off down the hill, each taking a different path. It wasn't long before the first little pig met a farmer pulling a cart filled with straw. "Please, may I buy some straw to build a house?" asked the little pig.
"Of course," replied the farmer, "but a straw house won't be very strong."
But the little pig didn't listen. Soon he was busy stacking the bundles of straw for his new house. In no time at all, the house of straw was finished, and the little pig went inside for a nap. He had just shut his eyes when there was a knock at the door. It was the big, bad wolf, and he was hungry.
Little pig, let me in,"
growled the wolf. "No!" cried the little pig. "Not by the hair on my chinny chin chin."
"Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house down,"
laughed the wolf. And that's just what he did. Huff, puff, whoosh! Meanwhile, the second little pig was walking along the road when he saw a woodcutter piling up sticks.
"Please, may I buy some sticks?"
he asked politely.
"I want to build a house."
"Of course," answered the woodcutter. "But a house made of sticks will soon fall down." But the second little pig wasn't listening. He was too busy planning his new stick home. Soon the house was finished. The little pig had just sat down to rest when there was a knock at the door. It was the big bad wolf. He was even hungrier now.
Little pig, let me in," he growled.
"No way! Not by the hair on my chinny chin chin!"
cried the second little pig.
"Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house down,"
cried the wolf. And that's exactly what he did. Huff, puff, whoosh! Meanwhile, the third little pig had met a builder. "Please, may I buy some of your bricks to build my house?" he asked. "Of course," replied the builder. "A fine, strong house of bricks will last forever." The third little pig took the builder's advice. He would build the strongest house in the land. Finally, after a hard day's work, the house was finished. It had 4 strong walls of brick, a tiled roof, a sturdy wooden door, and a large fireplace with a chimney. The third little pig had just put a pot of turnips on the fire to boil when he saw his brothers running down the road, closely followed by the big, bad wolf. "Quick!" cried the third little pig. "Hide in here!" The wolf, who was very hungry by now, banged on the sturdy front door.
Little pigs, let me in,
he growled, his tummy rumbling very loudly with hunger.
No way! Not by the hairs on our chins!
cried the 3 little pigs.
Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house down,
laughed the wolf. So he huffed, and he puffed, and he puffed, and he huffed. But the brick house stood firm. The wolf was furious. He climbed up onto the roof and shouted down the chimney.
If I can't blow your house down, I'll come down the chimney and gobble you all up.
The big bad wolf jumped and landed with a huge splash in the pot of turnips boiling on the fire below.
Yow!
He leaped up with a scream and ran out of the house, never to be seen again. And the 3 little pigs lived happily ever after in the house made of bricks. The end. Jack and the Beanstalk. Illustrated by Gavin Scott. Once there was a boy named Jack who lived with his mother. They were very poor and had to sell their cow to get money for food. As he was taking the cow to market, Jack met an old man.
You won't get much money for such an old cow,
he told Jack.
but I can give you something better than money for her. Magic beans.
He held out his hand and showed Jack 5 speckled beans. Magic beans, thought Jack. They sound exciting. He gave the old man the cow and took the beans, thanking the man politely. Then he went home to his mother. Jack's mother was extremely cross. "Silly boy," she shouted. "Thanks to you, we have no cow and no money." She threw the beans out of the window and sent Jack straight to bed. The next morning, Jack was astonished when he looked out of the window. A giant beanstalk had sprung up while he was sleeping, and it stretched up to the sky. Jack ran outside and began to climb the beanstalk. Up and up he went, higher and higher, till he reached the top. There he found a road which led to a big house. Jack's tummy was rumbling with hunger, so he knocked on the large wooden door. A giant woman answered. She looked kind, and Jack asked if she would give him some breakfast. "You will be breakfast if my husband finds you," she told Jack. "He's much bigger than me, and he eats children." But Jack begged and pleaded, and at last the woman let him in. She gave him some bread and milk and hid him in a cupboard. Soon Jack heard loud footsteps and felt the cupboard shake. The giant man was coming. Jack heard him roar,
Fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman.
"Don't be silly," the giant's wife said. "You smell the sausages I've cooked for your breakfast. Now sit down and eat."
After wolfing down 3 plates of sausages, the giant asked his wife to bring him his gold. She brought 2 big sacks filled with gold coins, which the giant began to count. But he was sleepy after his big breakfast and soon began to snore. Jack crept out of the cupboard and grabbed one of the sacks. Then he rushed out of the house, along the road, and straight down the beanstalk. Jack's mother was overjoyed to see him, and she was even happier when she saw the gold. They lived well while the money lasted, but after a year it had all been spent. Once again, Jack and his mother had nothing to eat. "Don't worry, Mother," said Jack. "I'll just go back up the beanstalk to the giant's house." And so he did. Just as before, Jack knocked on the door and begged the giant's wife for something to eat. "Go away," she told him. "The last time you were here, a sack of gold disappeared. My husband was really cross." But once again, Jack begged and pleaded, and at last she let him in. She gave him some bread and milk and hid him in the cupboard. Soon the giant stomped in, bellowing,
"Fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman."
"Nonsense," said the giant's wife. "You smell the yummy soup I've made for your lunch."
Peeping through a crack in the cupboard door, Jack saw the giant slurp down a big barrelful of soup and heard him tell his wife,
"Bring me my hen."
She put a fat red hen on the table, and the giant shouted,
"Lay!"
To Jack's amazement, the hen laid a golden egg. Jack waited until the giant was asleep. Then he jumped out and snatched the hen. Fast as lightning he dashed out of the house, along the road, and down the beanstalk. Jack and his mother lived very well on the money they made from the hen's golden eggs, but Jack wanted to climb the beanstalk one last time. He knew the giant's wife would not let him in again, so when she wasn't looking, he sneaked into the house and crawled into the cupboard. Before long, the giant came crashing in.
"Fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman,"
he thundered.
"You smell the steaks I've cooked for your dinner,"
his wife said, and she put a platter of thick, juicy steaks in front of him. After gobbling up the steaks, the giant took out a golden harp and said,
"Sing."
The harp played a gentle lullaby, and soon the giant was fast asleep. Jack sprang out, took the harp, and began to run. But the harp cried, "Master! Master!" and the giant woke up. With a roar, he leapt up and ran after Jack. Holding the harp tightly, Jack ran for his life. As he scrambled down the beanstalk, he yelled, "Mother! Mother! Bring the axe!" Jack took the axe and started to chop down the beanstalk. The giant quickly climbed back up to the top before it snapped in two. That was the last time Jack saw him. With the hen and the harp, Jack and his mother were able to live happily ever after, and they were never hungry again. The end. Little Red Riding Hood, retold by Gabby Goldsack, illustrated by Dubravka Kolanovich. Once upon a time, there was a little girl who lived with her mommy in a cottage on the edge of a big forest. Whenever the little girl went outside to play, she wore a beautiful red cloak that her grandma had made for her, It had a big red hood, so everyone called the little girl Little Red Riding Hood. One day, Little Red Riding Hood's mommy asked her to take a basket of food to Grandma. "Grandma isn't feeling well," Mommy explained, "and I'm sure she'd love to see you." Grandma lived on the other side of the forest, so Mommy drew a map on a piece of paper so that Little Red Riding Hood wouldn't get lost. "And remember, don't talk to any strangers along the way," said Mommy, helping Little Red Riding Hood into her cloak. Little Red Riding Hood took the basket of food and skipped into the forest. On the way, Little Red Riding Hood saw some beautiful blue flowers. "Grandma might like these," she thought. As she bent down to pick a handful of the flowers, she didn't realize someone else was in the forest.
"Hello, little girl,"
said a deep, growly voice. Little Red Riding Hood jumped with fright. A big wolf peered out from behind one of the trees. "Oh, hello," replied Little Red Riding Hood, smiling back at the wolf. She had already forgotten her mommy's warning.
"Where are you going?"
growled the wolf. "I'm visiting my sick grandma who lives on the other side of the forest," Little Red Riding Hood explained.
"Ah, what a kind girl you are,"
smiled the wolf, showing off his razor-sharp teeth. Just then, the wolf's tummy gave a loud, rumbly grumble. "What was that?" asked Little Red Riding Hood.
Just some thunder over the hills,"
said the sneaky, hungry wolf as he ran away as fast as he could to Grandma's cottage. The hungry wolf peered through Grandma's window and saw the old lady in bed. With a loud howl, the wolf dashed into the cottage and gobbled up Grandma in one large gulp. Then the wolf put on Grandma's spare nightcap and glasses, clambered into her bed, and pulled the quilt up to his chin. Now all he had to do was wait for Little Red Riding Hood to arrive. When Little Red Riding Hood reached the cottage, she was surprised to find the front door wide open. "Grandma," she called, "are you there?"
"I'm in the bedroom,"
replied the wolf in a strange, wobbly voice. Little Red Riding Hood went into the bedroom and gasped in surprise when she saw her grandma. She looked sort of different. "Grandma must be very sick," thought Little Red Riding Hood. "I hope it isn't catching." "What big eyes you have, Grandma," she said as she went over to the bed.
"All the better for seeing you with,"
the wolf replied in the same wobbly voice. "Grandma, what big ears you have," Little Red Riding Hood added, moving closer.
"All the better for hearing you with,"
said the wolf with a toothy grin. "My, what big teeth you have, Grandma," stuttered Little Red Riding Hood.
"All the better for eating you with."
Little Red Riding Hood screamed and tried to run away, but the hungry wolf was too fast. He leaped out of the bed and gobbled her up in a single greedy
gulp.
A passing woodcutter heard Little Red Riding Hood scream and ran into the cottage. When he saw the wolf's enormous belly, He guessed what had happened. He picked up the wolf and shook him hard. Little Red Riding Hood and Grandma flew out of the wolf's mouth. Luckily, they weren't hurt, but they were very cross. Grandma, Little Red Riding Hood, and the woodcutter chased the wolf into the forest and over the hill. The embarrassed wolf never came back, and Little Red Riding Hood never spoke to strangers again. The end.
Thank you for coming to the story room. If you like this story, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe.